collectively, we call ourselves the Staten Island Environmental Communications Team. And basically we do video recordings of all kinds of things environmentally related, and then try to disseminate that and get that out to folks to make them aware of what's going on and hopefully promote some activism. So to start, why don't you introduce yourself and talk about whatever you want to talk about to start off, and then I have a few questions I can.
So my name is Brandon Patterson. I'm running for the 64th Assembly District, which is the East Shore of Staten Island and Bay Ridge. These are two areas of New York City that were devastated by Superstorm Sandy. They're still recovering, and there's a lot of my platform that really ties into the environmental aspect that we were running on before COVID even hit. Funding for the seawall out in Staten Island, making sure that we have a resilient neighborhood, cutting down on transportation times, making it less needy for people to be having their cars so we can improve transportation, more bus lines, mass transit investment. Most importantly, job creation. And job creation when it relates to green jobs. I'm a big proponent of a windmill turbine fabrication program out on the Arthur Kill Terminal down in the South Shore of Staten Island. It would bring thousands of union jobs to construct it and permanent union jobs as well. Basically, for those who don't know, it would help build windmill turbines to ship down to the eastern seaboard out in Long Island as well, so that states can meet their green infrastructure and green energy needs. So, I mean, look, again, this is job creation. This is investment in transit. These are simple things that relate to the environment. And, and these aren't partisan issues. I mean, it shocks me when people want to make them partisan. These are just pragmatic, common sense issues that we've been running on since last February. So, that's me in a nutshell. I have over 20 union endorsements. We're fighting hard to lower taxes, build jobs, rebuild after COVID, and I can't wait to get to work on behalf of the people of Staten Island and Bay Ridge on next January.
The whole idea of renewable energy and the industries connected to it, Staten Island is obviously well placed to be a place to fabricate and also to ship parts out to the sea, which is right alongside our coast. But as a state assemblyman, what exactly can you do to make sure we get those contracts and get those facilities created here?
Well, and that's a great question. I remember vividly one day in the summer, somebody said to me, you can't create any jobs. Politicians don't create jobs. Well, I mean, hell yeah, we can. We can go to bat for these projects. Far too often, especially here in Staten Island and my predecessor, people just sort of lay low. They don't want to ruffle feathers, and they don't want to stand up. They don't want to use the bully pulpit they have. They know when to run for higher office, but they don't know when to help their own constituency and those in the surrounding districts. So I will fight like hell. I will stand on the steps of City Hall, stand on the steps up in Albany. I'll talk to whoever the next Congress member is, whoever the next mayor is. I am going to work with anyone who is willing to help my constituents and fight against anyone, Democrat, Republican, that is standing in our way. We're going to make sure that we can do this. We're going to work with the unions and the people that are behind the project to make sure that we can get this job. We're going to build a union, and we're going to make sure that we can get as many jobs as possible. And look, I think that there's a lot of negotiating that's going to have to get done to make sure we get this project. It's going through an RFP process. But at the end of the day, this district needs an advocate. And if that's an advocate for the investment in that or in more bus lines for express buses to take people to the city, that's an advocate for finding ways to get a fast ferry. Whatever it is, we need someone who's willing to talk about these issues and not just political jargon or slogans every 2 years.
That's a good segue into the next question about it's about fossil fuels, but in terms of transportation. That we're still using diesel engines, which contributes to to great amounts of carbon monoxide, sulfur, and particulate waste. So we'd like to move away from those things, and some of the things that you mentioned, like ferries, and also vehicles that ply our streets all the time, like sanitation vehicles, are well suited to become electric vehicles. And I think this is something that we can do on a state level. It's not a federal thing necessarily, but the state could do it. So again, as a member of the Assembly, I'm guessing you agree with this idea, but how do we get there from here?
I mean, look, I think it's simple. Staten Island is a unique place, and everyone on Staten Island will always remind you that we're a unique place and we're different from the other boroughs. There's plenty of opportunities to do maybe some pilot projects here where if you want to talk about some green energy trucks like sanitation, like you spoke about, or creating mechanisms that are going to lower our carbon footprint, we have a lot of space and a lot of ingenuity and a lot of great ideas here in Staten Island. So if we're going to take those opportunities, we should be testing them here. Now, look, I understand the mayor, last year, 2 years ago, and his idea to build a giant train, Brooklyn through Queens. But we've been asking for these sort of rapid transit opportunities here in Staten Island, and people always forget about us. Again, we need someone who's willing to work with the next mayor and the next city council, no matter how crazy, no matter how far left, how far right they are, and stand up for the people of Staten Island, because we need the transit options. We need to cut down because we're such a car-heavy borough. There's nothing wrong with cars. I'm not against the car culture, but I think we've become such a car culture because we lack so many options here in Staten Island. Everybody forgets they all have an underground subway in every other borough except for here. We only have an above-ground subway or rail line that goes on one side of the island. Everybody forgets that there was the ability to do it from the ferry all the way out to Manresa Harbor, and it never got built. We need this infrastructure and we need this investment. We can do it with a job creation program like I spoke about. We can do it with other revenue raisers. We just need some bold leadership to do it.
Yeah, Staten Island has some of the longest commutes of anywhere in the country. So, any of these ideas hopefully would help. Sort of a offshoot of that is, using bicycles and e-bikes, as alternative transportation, so we don't have so much traffic on the highways. And by the way, I'm a bicyclist, and one of my favorite spots to go is the board, not the boardwalk, but the bike lane behind the boardwalk there. And, that's a, world-class bike lane, bike pedestrian lane. It's well used. You can, especially during COVID, we were able, people can walk, ride, push their kids in their stroller.
So I want to say this also, and it's a little embarrassing to say for a 31-year-old kid, but I never learned to ride a bike. I always had inline skates and a skateboard as a kid. So I don't know how to ride a bike, but what I will tell you is it really grinds my gears when Staten Island gets left out of these bike share programs. I mean, we had the Lime bikes and the jump bikes, but they were only in the North Shore. I mean, how can we, to your point, go on the boardwalk and make people realize how great of a jewel Staten Island is, and it's so many parks and, historical places, if we don't have the opportunities to ride the bikes there? Our boardwalk is such an underutilized asset to Staten Island. I mean, we had a little playground there for kids, like with some rides. We can be turning that into a tourist opportunity with food trucks, stands for people to sell things, like a sort of like a smorgasbord like they do in Brooklyn. But you need a bike to get there, and you need the transit options to get there too. It's a long walk from the train, and the bus takes a long time. We can be doing better on Staten Island. And, just to really bring it home, why aren't we talking about these things, like a fast ferry and interconnecting them with the other options? Again, I mean, we get so bogged down. I think you look at other races around Staten Island and the state, and it becomes these one issue things. My opponent, I don't think, has ever said anything about the environment. All he does is talk about bail reform. I don't know how bail reform cleans the environment, gets jobs, how it brings tourism to Staten Island. And so many people are missing the boat on that. And we allow this to happen, unfortunately. And that's why I know I'm the best candidate to win this race, because these are things that we're going to be talking about every day. We talk about them every day now. We're going to talk about it once we win.
On a different topic, one of the issues that we have here, since we have a lot of waterfront, and we were just talking about the beaches, is there's so much plastics and other pollution that washes up on that's in the water and washes up on the shore. There is a bill, I believe, in the New York State Assembly at the moment to ban the recreational mass release of balloons. So simple things like this could make a really big difference. Would you support this bill if you were elected?
So I'm not necessarily familiar with the bill. So, I can't comment on what's in it and what it does. But I will say this. I mean, I think we do need to take a look at different things in which we can ban. I think that the styrofoam ban, what the city did years ago, was a great idea. And then it became such a fight over if we can recycle it or not. Look, even if for people who don't, and I'm not one of them, but even for people who don't believe in climate change or global warming or whatever they want to call it, they have to be able to admit that there is a change in the environment, that we're doing more as humans to sort of set things back. And going, to your question about balloons, we do these events, remembrances and walks, and we do them more and more when we're able to get together in a non-COVID year. So just to admit that there's something wrong. I mean, I know all the local breweries in Staten Island now sell their packaging with these new tops that are sort of not environmentally friendly, but if they end up in the ocean, they're not going to be harming the wildlife. There's so many things that we can be doing and we can be improving on. So after this, I'm gonna take a look at that bill, and we'll certainly have a conversation about what it does and how we can improve, not only by banning these simple things like balloons, but doing other things to just make this environment and our beaches and waterfronts just a little bit better.
Yeah, for much of my environmental work, I worked on rainwater harvesting and stormwater mitigation. And, the point is that these combined sewer overflows dump, untreated sewage into the waters. And where they dump them may not be the beach itself, but eventually they do end up on the beach. Actually, one of the sewage treatment plants is in your district, right, Beltwood. And if there is one of these storm events, they have to close the beaches for several days afterwards. So, it's all about everything's downstream, and we have to be aware of what we do to the environment.
So just really quick, I was out door knocking over the weekend, and DOT came in and they redid some curbs, and there was another DDC project with some storm drains and sewers, but they just left part of the curb not done. It's been raining, the drudge and the dirt and everything just clogs up the drains. I mean, we have to make sure that we're doing things and government agencies are talking. My biggest pet peeve is when people come in with such an expensive project to do the storm drains. They cut up, they put the new sewer or sanitary drains in, and then you get another agency that comes in and cuts it up again, like Verizon, paves it, cuts it up again, Con Ed. You want to talk about just sort of the energy that goes into that and the carbon footprint that goes into that, and just sort of the government waste. We can be taking away some of that waste. We can do everything at once and take some of that money and go back and invest it in the proper infrastructure we need that makes sense and is the green energy stuff, right? The more rapid transit for buses and a new bus depot, a fast ferry. We can be taking money out of wasteful projects and putting them into projects that are really going to work to save the environment, but then also help people in their quality of life. Yeah,
there's absolutely no reason not to coordinate efforts like, paving a street and then having to have it torn up again a month later or 6 months later. You mentioned Superstorm Sandy, and your district was the most impacted. In fact, I just looked at a map of it, and 3/4 of your district was flooded by, at least the Staten Island part was flooded during Superstorm. Following Sandy, there were a number of government efforts to alleviate some of the issues that went on there. The city did the Build It Back program. The state did the buyback program, and the feds are going to fund the seawall, and further down the coast, the living breakwaters. which of these programs do you think worked best? Which ones had problems? What would you? Is there something else that you would suggest that be done? Because
I look at,
it's waiting for the next Sandy to happen.
I look at all these projects and I think of it the way I look at executives right now, and it's just sort of bad leadership. I met somebody recently whose house was raised by Superstorm Sandy. They were one of the first ones. They're on stilts. And now their pipes freeze all the time because there wasn't proper insulation. I met somebody down the same block where now the water just sort of collects because there's no drains. And during the winter, it freezes over. So it's literally impossible to get out. I look at the seawall, and it's an expensive project. And I can, I know that the borough president and Congress and the congressman want to leave some of the docks up so we can do a fast ferry. But I don't trust this federal government to do that. I think they're going to fail. I look at the city, and they're not following through on what they should have done. The state, again, I think was pretty – people had some problems with the state and getting through. But one thing I will tell you is that I think I worked in government during Superstorm Sandy. I worked in government during COVID. We were not prepared for either one. And I think we have to start getting better at procurement process. And setting things up so that we can get out of these problems, man-made or not. And the one thing I will say is we need to start looking past Superstorm Sandy and how we can revitalize that area. So recently there were some homes that were destroyed. They were never built back. People moved, and the state owned it. So there's a restaurant right next door. And because of COVID, they wanted to do a drive-in movie theater. We were able to get the state to sell them the land. They're not building on it. It's just a big parking lot. And it literally turned into a job creation because the restaurant owner was able to bring back some staff so that they can do drive-in movie theaters, which the governor wanted to do as a socially distant activity. I think we need to make sure that when we do things like this, we have someone who's responsible in office and someone who understands and has a vision. Most importantly, again, the Congress member and the borough president want to see a dock when the docks that are being used for the seawall can be used for a fast ferry that they kept up. That's a vision. My fear is that my opponent has no vision. He's just going to continue to let the deterioration happen. He's not going to step up and make sure that we can get out of this. So really, to get back to the original question, I think there's been failures and successes on all three levels. But I'm willing to step up and make sure that if people still have build it back problems, we can fight with the proper agencies, and make sure that we can really revitalize that area and get it to a place that people aren't continuously struggling. I've knocked on so many doors where people are still reeling from Superstorm Sandy, again, with sort of these issues that we never thought would happen. Houses, they're people's houses that aren't raised that are still having issues. We can just be doing so much better as government. We need an official who's going to focus on their constituents 24/7, 365.
The idea of this drive-in movie, I think follows on your website. I noticed you talk a lot about adaptive reuse.
Yep.
And so that's great. And the organization I used to work for, Grow NYC, is actually talking to the state about using some of that land that they bought and raised the houses, potentially for little farms. So, things like that, I think, creative thinking. And I have to applaud the state that they're actually trying to do something positive there.
Well, and I think going along with that, I remember years ago, there was some great capital projects in the city where they had, like these farms on roofs of schools or in schoolyards, where you can do some green energy. And adaptive reuse is really, in my opinion, going to get us out of this because it's going to be job creation programs and it's going to be ways that we can lower the carbon footprint again, right? So we have hotels in Staten Island. There's one on the West Shore, which, it's not necessarily in a tourist area and there's not a lot there. If they don't survive, you can turn these into hospitals and schools. You look at Manhattan, all these office spaces, you can turn them into condos, into hospitals, into schools. We have the structures up. There's no need to to build new structures and create traffic and do all that emissions to the air that we don't need. You're just going in and you're bringing in union jobs. The carpenters did it to the Javits Center to build a hospital. It's really easy. We can fix the housing issues that we have. We can fix the lack of schools. I've been saying we needed schools since day one, and now we want to socially distance. I feel like parents and teachers too, feel a lot more comfortable going to school if we weren't in a classroom of 1 of 35 kids, right? If you can take half of those kids out and put them in another classroom, I think everyone would feel a lot more comfortable. We need more hospitals, right? We saw it, the overflow. We have the structures in place. Let's just do it because, listen, I'm tired of hearing people complain Staten Island doesn't have a public hospital. Well, we have some space. Let's build one.
Or not build a new building, but
right, or reuse it. Let's build one out, right? Let's take a structure that we have and just demo that inside and make it into a hospital. This is I say this all the time. This is the greatest city in the world, the greatest state in this country. The excuses need to stop. We just need to get it done. And that comes with bold leadership, bold ideas, and someone who's willing to take on any fight.
That sort of relates to the next question I have, and that's about preserving open. Staten Islanders have been at the forefront of asking to preserve space. The Protectors of Pine Oak Woods is a local organization that does that, and we win some battles, we lose some. And one of the major losses recently was in your district, Mount Manresa. And the next one, and actually that isn't totally lost yet because they haven't started building there yet. So it's still open space. One big issue is the Graniteville Wetlands, which is a little bit outside your district, but still, something that a state legislator could have some input into, hopefully. And they want to put a mini mall on, well, actually pretty big boxes on wetlands, which is the buffer to avoid future issues like superstorms. What do you think could be done to avoid future development, especially on sensitive lands like this?
Yeah, so I am keenly aware of both issues. So I work for Diane Savino, the state senator. So she was one of the biggest fighters against both projects, particularly Mount Manresa. But I grew up in that area. I grew up right on South Avenue in Graniteville, where, down the block from where that BJ's is being proposed. Again, we need better leadership. The city council, is letting it through. And some lawyers that I've spoken to on the state level think that the really irony of it is that from my understanding of the project and the process, if this project would have happened and been proposed today, the city council would have never been able to really do it, just based on the changing environmental structure that's out there. It's just been a project that's been out there for so long, so they were able to get some of that information through. And look, that was just an opinion of some lawyers. I don't know if that really holds true, but at the end of the day, we have, and this is one of those nuanced things where I think government experience is so important. Again, I grew up there. So part of that area in the flood map is in the X zone, which is optional if you want to get flood insurance, and then some of it isn't. And over there you have Regal Walk, which is where I grew up, which is a condo. And then you have some other ones a little bit higher, closer to Forest Avenue. The flood program with FEMA is terrible. These projects is going to increase the cost of living for people a lot over there that are middle income. Some of them are fixed income. We just need better advocates. We need someone who's willing to work with city and state and federal agencies, regardless if it's a pet project for them or not. We need just people that are going to speak up. I think my boss, Senator Diane Savino, has done a great job at that and fighting for the people. And, I don't look at Staten Island or Bay Ridge really as, broken up by districts. If there's a fight on Staten Island or Bay Ridge to be had, I'm going to be in that fight with my constituents, because what happens a block away from the district or 10 blocks away from the district or 2 miles away from the district, it still affects my constituents, because people are so transient and they go to other sides of the island to shop, to work, they have their cousins there, whatever it is. you're going to hear my voice every time there's a fight if I'm believing that it hurts my constituents.
The next question is about illegal dumping, and it's, you know, it's not like a sexy issue by any means, but, you know, if you drive along some of the roads on Staten Island, you'll see these piles of debris, either from people's households or from construction projects. And it, you know, it's not just the eyesore, but these things can, you know, clog the sewer drains, as we talked about earlier, and you know, just the livability and the quality of life for Staten Island. And how do we stop this, and how do we, you know, I don't know, find some place for these folks to put all their waste so it's not literally littering our roadsides?
Yeah, so I've been endorsed by this sanitation officers who are the men and women that go out and do this enforcement. So I plan on working with them. I think a good tool also is NYPD Argus cameras. They're sort of the eyes in the sky. If we can do an investment there to catch these people. And I have a great working relationship with Staten Island's district attorney. These people need to be made an example of. They need to be fined and prosecuted for what they're doing. It's not, it is illegal. And I think that's the simplest way to do it, is just make an example and hit them where it hurts in their pocketbooks.
Basically, the questions that we all put together and that I have for you, and as you can see, there's from the very nitty gritty, like, you know, waste, and a lot of it has to do with waste and sanitation, the plastics issue, the energy issue, you know, but it's all what Staten Islanders need to make or to have a livable environment here. Do you have any closing comments that you'd like to make?
Yeah. And, you know, again, thank you for your time. And to anyone who out there is still watching when this gets posted, thank you. You know, I think a lot of these issues are so interconnected. Green energy jobs is a way that we can increase the revenue in the city and state without raising taxes, because we were in a budget deficit before COVID. Investing in transit, more bus depots, more buses, a fast ferry, the Staten Island Transit, all those things increase your quality of life, increase your time home with your spouse and kids and your family, decreases your time traveling to and from work. These are all things that make our environment better. These are tangible job creation and job benefits that we're talking about. And if there's one message that I want to send everyone home with, is that we need to elect someone who's willing to stand up for these things. So I encourage you, if you like what you heard, go to patterson4ny.com, check out some more of my policy proposals, send us a message, make sure you're connecting with us, so that we can, you know, talk about these issues. And when I win, so we can talk about them, you know, on how we're going to actually implement them all. You know, again, November 3rd is the election. Vote early so you can vote safely. That's the most important thing. Be safe. So wear your mask, and starting October 24th, make sure you go to your early voting site so you can avoid the lines come November 3rd.
Thank you for spending the time. It was a very interesting conversation, and I hope you enjoyed it as well.
Yeah.
And, good luck in the coming weeks and on November 3rd.
Thank you so much. And I can't wait to work alongside with everyone here, so we can really clean up anything and improve Staten Island.